Good morning, everybody. How's everyone today? Happy Friday. Just gonna try and get you guys going here on my little thing. And it's always fun to get the cameras going. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm on. Oh my gosh, okay. It's always so much fun, you know, and it's interesting. I can never get my laptop to really do it. The laptop's been falling off Facebook Live, and I'm not really sure why, but anyway. So we have lots to do today. Lots. So we're going to get started. Just going to go and make all the things that I need done for the weekend. And so thank you for joining me. And so we're going to start with this cabbage. And I am going to carefully use the, there's a name for this. I want to call it a guillotine. That's what they used to call it years ago. And it just sounds so archaic. It'll come to me, or you guys can tell me. Anyway, we're going to get started with this because I do need to make some sauerkraut. And I wanted to work with that a little bit. So I have purple cabbage here. Typically you would use, when you're using this, only if you have a cabbage this big would you ever use it without the finger guard. Always use the finger guard because these things are super dangerous. So I just wasn't sure if it's gonna work with this big piece of the cabbage, but we're gonna try it. Oh yeah, okay, so we're good. Always use the finger guard, and typically, like if you guys have seen me do this before, I nearly always use a knife because I think that when you make sauerkraut with a knife, good morning, hi darling, good morning, and so I almost always use a knife because I think that it puts more love into it. You know, this morning I am in a bit of a hurry because I want to show you so many things in our short time together that I am going to use this, and you can see it's shredding up really fine. The other reason that I'm using this mandolin, that's the word. See, it came to me. Well, it takes a little bit of time at my age for the words to come. They're in there somewhere. They just take a long time to like a good friend said that it's not that I forget things, it's that I've acquired so much information that it takes me a long time to find it all. So anyway, okay, so the other reason that we're using the mandolin, much better word, is because the purple cabbage is much denser than the green cabbage. So with your green cabbage, which is what I usually make my raw fermented sauerkraut, I usually use a green cabbage, and so it is much easier to slice thinner with a knife, and the purple cabbage is a little more, tougher. Hey Monique, hi, how you doing? So I have a feeling I'm shaking the table, but I shouldn't be because I have the camera on a tripod. Are you guys bouncing around? So anyways, I just needed to make a little extra sauerkraut, and I happen to have the purple cabbage, which actually has a higher vitamin C content than the green cabbage. The green cabbage has higher vitamin K, and the purple cabbage has more vitamin C. The other thing about the purple cabbage is that it, I'm trying not to shake you guys, is it also has the antioxidant power of goji berries, and it is much cheaper than goji berries. So if you are wanting that antioxidants and all of the benefits of the goji berries, you can use purple cabbage, and it is super high in vitamin C. So anyways, I'm just going to make half a jar. I just want this like over the weekend. So I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just doing enough for a couple days because I like to have, and we all really should have, raw fermented sauerkraut on hand all the time. Like that's your the fermented foods are your probiotics. So, you know, a lot of people know about probiotics that they you know, instead of buying probiotics, which is okay too. If you've been on antibiotics or anything like that, you probably should purchase a really high strain of probiotic, and health food store can help you with that, with your choice, because there are many choices. And so your probiotics restore the bacteria that the antibiotics kill, basically. So your antibiotics, antibiotics. So when you're on antibiotics, just going to set that there. When you're on antibiotics, you are killing the good bacteria as well as bad bacteria. So you need to replace that after you're on antibiotics. And most of us live such a lifestyle and have such a diet that we are deficient. We're not really feeding our probiotics, and so we tend to be deficient. And your gut biome, your intestinal health is everything when it comes to your immune system, when it comes to your health in general. It's super, super important. So, so the other thing, if you've seen any of my other videos, or many of my other videos, I have about, I don't know, 150 on YouTube, and they're all mostly basically 15-minute meals that are really healthy and easy to do, because I'm so not a professional cook. I just cook what I need to stay healthy, and so everyone has asked me to share that, and so I am. I'm not a professional cook. I am a certified herbalist, though. If you want to ask me about herbs, that I know. Food, I just make it to as fast as I can, as healthy as I can. So with the probiotics, super, super important. And then you have your probiotics restore the intestinal bacteria, and they feed the intestinal bacteria. So that's anything fermented. So that could be, well, obviously raw sauerkraut. It could be kefir. It can be kimchi is really good. Anything fermented, even like miso, raw fermented miso. So it's a raw thing, and I just completely and totally did this wrong. Oh my God. I'm looking at all the other things we have to do today, and I'm like, oh God, okay, I jumped ahead. Don't do that. Like, don't stuff it in the jar yet. If you're doing this with me, don't stuff it in the jar yet. Okay, the way it ferments, oh my God. The way it ferments and grows those probiotics that we're talking about that we really need is through salt. And so a lot of times pickling, if you do a natural raw pickling, it can also ferment and then would contain those probiotics. Oh my God, okay. A lot of things to do too. Okay, so typically you would do a head of cabbage, like a whole head, and I did not. I only did barely half. And so typically you would use like a tablespoon of salt, and that would be a Celtic. You could use, I always use a natural salt. I don't ever use a like a regular iodized salt. I either use a Celtic sea salt or a Himalayan sea salt. And so because I didn't use a whole cabbage, I'm not going to use a whole tablespoon of salt with this. I'm just going to use half a tablespoon. Okay, so the thing with the salt stops it from going bad, basically. It preserves it, as well as starts the breaking down process of the cabbage, so that it starts to break down and starts to ferment. You know, so yeah, so you're going to massage the salt into the cabbage, and this works actually. It's not too bad with the purple. Like I said, the purple is a little tougher. It's like tougher skinned, so it doesn't break down as fast as the green. And also, oh, I remember what I was saying about all my videos, and if you haven't watched this before, hey Jane, good morning. Jane, both Janes are here. That's awesome. So Yeah, so if you haven't watched my videos, one of the things I always tell people is always wash all your vegetables before you put them in the fridge, because it just makes it so much faster for those quick 15-minute meals, and you tend to eat healthier because you don't have to start washing vegetables after you've worked all day and it's 5 o'clock at night and you don't want to take everything out and start washing it. So I always do wash the vegetables before I put them in the fridge. Other than the cabbage, you know, you can just really wash the outside and then take off the outer leaves. And of course, clean your hands before doing any of this to make sure your hands are really clean so you don't introduce any weird other bacterias. So I don't know if you can see this, but the salt's breaking down. See the juice dripping? I didn't add any water. So that's what it does. The salt starts breaking down the cabbage. And if you had a whole cabbage, like a whole head, obviously you'd be doing 2 hands. I'm just kind of doing this to show you guys. And because I like to have different ferments in the fridge so that you can add this to salad. You can eat it straight up, of course. You can add it to salad. And so that's your probiotics. And see how juicy that's getting. Now we can put it in the jar. I just jumped ahead because I'm so excited to have so many things to do with you today. And it's Friday, and I'm going to miss you guys tomorrow. So you're basically, this makes it a lot easier to get in the jar. It just drops right in. You're basically going to put it in there. And for me, I do this a lot, like probably at least every 2 weeks. But as soon as we start to run out, I make a new batch. And if you've looked at any of my other videos, I typically do the green cabbage, and I usually add an onion and a carrot. In this case, I just want it pure. And so, so the trick to this is to keep it down under the water. And so that's like a salt brine. And the salt stops it from, I hate it when I do that and my arm wiggles. Oh my God, okay, I'm gonna quit looking at myself. I need to do more upper arm exercises. Yes, Patty, I know. Anyways, yeah, so you want it underneath the brine. The brine's going to stop it from molding. And having said that, most sauerkrauts can and will, especially large batches, if you have them for a long time, they will form like a little SCOBY on the top. So it can be like a little film, a little white film. And, you know, I've made it like in the big, huge 25-gallon crocks, and it grows that protective film to keep the air out. And so that can be really tricky for people that aren't used to it, and you wouldn't know if it's mold or if it's really just the SCOBY, so to speak. So it's always best to make sure that it stays under the water, because the any food particles that stick out of the brine, the salt brine, will tend to mold. And so you want to make sure everything is in there and pressed down. And then I'm going to do this again probably next week, because I'm almost out of the green cabbage too, but I happen to have a green cabbage in the fridge. So what you're going to do is make sure all of the pieces are in the very bottom underneath the brine. And then typically what we would do is, with your clean hands, is take a little piece of the cabbage leaf and put it on top. Now, there's so many different ways of, this is really tiny, a little tiny sample. There's so many different ways of doing this, but typically you put a cabbage leaf to hold it down, and then a lot of times what you're going to do is weight it, like a weight, like a little glass jar, maybe filled with water, to hold the cabbage leaf down, to hold the cabbage into the brine. Or you can make extra brine and you can cover it with the brine. It is a little tricky with the salt, because in the past I've used too much salt because I didn't want it to mold, but what I didn't really realize was that inhibits the bacterial growth, so it's a really kind of tricky balance. And so the other thing you can do with this, you want to make sure And I'm not going to waste your time cleaning all that off because we've got more important things to do. But what you can do, what I usually do is I have it, make sure that the brine's covering it, and then I just, you can use a dish towel or a clean cloth or whatever and just cover it. Make sure the air doesn't get in. And then what I do, because I do this a lot, is I'm checking it all the time, every day. And we start eating it because it just is so yummy, even in a day or two. The warmer it is, the faster it's going to ferment, and it can be as fast as 3 days. And then when it starts to ferment, and you realize that the cabbage is changing and not tasting salty, I don't even like to really call it sauerkraut, because a lot of people think, oh, sauerkraut, and they don't really like it. But if you've had raw fermented sauerkraut, it does not taste like anything you would find in a jar. So you're going to keep trying it and tasting it, and then when it starts to get like where it's perfectly wonderful tasting, then you're going to stick it in the fridge, which will stop or slow down the fermentation process. Okay, so I have other videos on this that explain a lot better, and we do a whole big batch, but because I needed to do this today and a couple of people asked me, I'm just going to show this other process. And the other thing you can do, and like I said, we're going to do this again soon because I need more. There's these things here, which I got a piece of cabbage on. It's called the Perfect Pickler, and it's a little thing that keeps the air out, because it's the air that makes it mold, right? The air coming in contact with the food. You stick this little lid on here, and it has a little thing, like a, kind of like for wine and stuff, and I just got this, and I was in such a hurry today. I'm pretty sure it goes like that. It's not staying in there very good, but the picture shows it going like that. There must be something else to it. Anyways, you can check this out on the internet, because I didn't have time to read the instructions. So I thought, oh wow, this is cool. I'll tell people about that. Okay, once I learn how to do it, I'll tell you more. We're going to move on to the important stuff. Anybody that hasn't seen my videos, we have such a good time. Hey Barb, don't we? Okay, so anyway, basic. Stick your whatever it is that you want. If it's cabbage, you're going to mix the salt in to make it ferment. And if you wanted to pickle other things, which we're going to do in another day, you could just put the brine over something like carrots or beans or that kind of thing, which we will do. Okay, I'm going to set this aside now that I've made a big mess here with the cabbage. Okay, I want to show you something super important and super cool, and I'm just going to go and rinse my hands off, so hang on 1 second. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to do the important things that I wanted to show you guys. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is elderberry. Can I put that there? Can I put that here? We're going to talk about elderberries and how important they are for. Typically, they are used for the cold and flu season. And I know we're not there yet. We don't even want to think about that because, you know, honestly, it just hasn't even warmed up enough to be considered a cold summer. But I'm reading the next thing. Yeah, probably. Oh yeah. Well, there were more parts to that thing. Okay, we'll figure that out later. I do it the old-fashioned way. I just stick a cloth over it with an elastic band and I'm done. So all these new technologies are like, okay, somebody's got to take time to figure that stuff out. Not me right now. Anyway, back to elderberries. Elderberries are, everybody knows what an elder tree looks like. Elder tree, so we have a lot that grow wild here in BC, which is so super, super awesome. And there's been a lot of research on this particular, okay, I'm going to back up a bit. Elderberries have been known for centuries for cold and flus. They have, oh my gosh, they're anti-inflammatory. You know, of course they've been used for viruses and colds and flus, for sore throats, for the respiratory system, for the lungs, but they're really, really studied now for this particular virus. Okay, we're just going to say it like that, this particular virus. So the berries have always been known as being really, really amazingly healing and antiviral, anti-inflammatory. They're like almost antibiotic. They aren't, but you know, they're just so good for you. And so that's the blue or the black elderberries. So around here in BC, we have a lot of elderberry trees that grow wild, but I've found that most of them have the red berries. You can't use red berries. Red berries are toxic. So, so unfortunately, even though I have an elderberry tree, I can't use the berries. So I did order these, and you can buy them at the health food store. They can order them in for you, the little dried berries. Yeah, and it's much easier to make the syrup. What we're making is an elderberry syrup, in case I forgot to tell you. And so with the elderberry syrup, that is in so many of the anti-flu preparations that you can buy in the health food stores. And so they're fairly expensive because the berries are very expensive. So if you make your own elderberry syrup, it's much cheaper. And it's so awesome to have your own love and your own energy into the elderberry syrup. So what we're going to do here, we have these are the dried, and then this I actually simmered for about an hour to get the juice out. So I poured this into a sieve in this. You guys can't see what I'm doing. And so I poured this into a regular sieve to get this out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to strain it again. So I have a cheesecloth and I have 2 meshes just to try and get the, you know, all the bits out. The bits would be fine though. And so when you're making an elderberry syrup, you're going to preserve it typically, historically, with honey, because that'll preserve it, and typically that would last you, if you put it in the fridge, it will stay, it'll be good for 6 months. And so you would use it like a syrup, but it's so you can see the syrup there. Well, I'm not going to waste any of that. I'll be using that. But it's so preventative, as well as using for if you do have a sore throat or a flu or something like that. It also has antimicrobial activities, so it gets rid of any microbes, and it has some antibacterial. They've been studying for that. So what I was going to say is there have been studies recently about the leaves too. And so the leaves can be used with caution, with the advice of a herbalist. The leaves can be used in a tea, but they're doing a lot of studies. They haven't investigated the whole plant yet with enough research. But I'm telling you, this is super important. It's going to be really important this winter for you guys to be able to prevent yourself from getting sick, and also something that's fantastic for treating sore throat. So when we're going to add this, and then we're going to put this over here. And so the honey preserves it. So right here I have, this is your recipe. And you guys that know me know I'm not much for measuring or doing proper recipes. And actually you'll be thrilled to know I have a helper who's gonna start keeping notes on what I do and how I do it, and actually put it on my Instagram and my YouTube. Okay, so we have 2 cups of the elderberry juice, basically. This is called a decoction whenever you use a herb and you're doing more than a tea. So the tea is more of an infusion. So tea is when you pour the hot water over the herb, and you can let it steep for 15 minutes or whatever. That's more of an infusion. When you're actually simmering to pull the medicinal qualities out of the herb, it's called a decoction. And so this is a decoction of the elderberries and water. That's it. So since we have 2 cups, typically what you would do to preserve it for elderberry syrup to last for 6 months without going bad would be 1 cup of honey. So it's half and half, right? So 2 cups of syrup would be 1 cup of honey. But what I'm going to do, what I want to do, is actually make this an oxymel. And an oxymel is where you add apple cider vinegar to it too, so that you get those the additional preservative, and because the apple cider vinegar preserves. I'm going to set this here. Remember, you guys, when we made the apple cider vinegar salad dressings, basically it's just apple cider vinegar, and we have fir buds. We did this with oregano, we did it with thyme, we did it with rosemary, and we did it with self-heal. And so when you're using a raw apple cider vinegar, it has the mother in it. So make sure that your apple cider vinegar is raw, not pasteurized, and that it has the mother. And so we used that apple cider vinegar, and we put the herb in it, and we just covered it with the apple cider vinegar, and it's growing. I don't know if you can see it here. This one shows better. It's growing its own little mother. It's growing its own little mother on the top. And that little mother, see how cute it is, a little mother. And so it's protecting it. And so it's alive, right? It's alive. And so that has probiotics as well. So we're making the elderberry syrup even more powerful by adding the apple cider vinegar, because that's going to facilitate that whole probiotic, gut bacteria. It's going to just give it some extra oomph to work with the whole immune system, the intestinal system, the respiratory system, the throat, the everything. So, and it makes it preserve longer. So I have had elderberry oxymel for 2 years, not refrigerated, and it is still fantastically amazing, and I'm almost out, which is why we're making more. So back to the ratios. The ratio of the 2 cups of decoction, 2 cups of water and elderberries, basically, but we still only want 1 cup of I'll call it preservative, so to speak. So that means we're only going to do a half cup, because we're not just making a syrup, we're making an oxymel. And so we're only going to add a half cup of the honey rather than a cup, because we're going to use our other half cup apple cider vinegar. So there's a safe place for that. Okay, safe place. Yeah, so we're going to try and get exactly half a cup of honey in here. And typically, I'd be doing this on the stove, which I could have, and I probably should have had my little burner here, but I don't. Next time. But typically you want this warm, right? And not the reason that you want to turn it off, you want to stop that heat process, and you do not want to be adding your honey into hot water, because this is raw, unprocessed honey, and it has the enzymes in it. So you don't want to be killing those enzymes in heat, which is why I took it off the stove. But if it was just carefully still in the pot on very, very lukewarm, that would be good to melt it faster. But I can just set this, like on the top of the stove when the oven's on, and it'll be warm enough to melt this honey. And so the honey's going to dissolve, and then we're going to add the apple cider vinegar with the other half cup, right? So we're still just adding 1 cup on top of the 2 cups. Okay, half cup apple cider vinegar, and so that's it. So we're just going to make sure it's mixed well, And if you do warm it just, you know, lukewarm, little above lukewarm, and get this in here, it will actually thicken and become a really, really lovely syrup. So I can show you. This is the one I made before, and it's, I get another clean spoon. See if I can show you. I'm just going to pour it over here carefully, but can you guys see that? See, it pours out like syrup. Can you see that? It's just, it's got a really nice consistency, just like any cough syrup. Only better. That is so good. And I would use that. I have used it on salad sparingly, and because it's expensive. And I would use it on pancakes too, but that's too expensive. So what I want to tell you about is, if you can't afford this, because there are a lot of people out there right now that are, you know, struggling a bit financially, let's say the least. And so elderberry is fantastic and amazing and wonderful, and really it's the Cadillac of syrups, especially for that. But if you don't have the money for elderberries, we have been, we meaning I myself and we have been investigating other berries. And so I was working with you guys last week. I don't want to spill this. And we did salmon berries. Remember how fun the salmon berries were? Oh my God, salmon berry smoothie. It was awesome. And so they also have the vitamin C. They also have antioxidants and nutritional value, and we don't really know because they have not been researched as much and as traditionally as the elderberry. So when I looked into huckleberries, remember we picked huckleberries the other day, didn't we? Me, myself, and I. And and so the huckleberries, oh yeah, I should show you guys. I have some on a little branch. I might go get it. See the little berries? See the little berries? Little red berries. They're very tart. So they're not super sweet, and they're a little picky to pick. I'm actually going to grab the leaf that I forgot to bring over here for you, so you can see what it looks like. These grow wild on Vancouver Island all over the place. Huckleberries, can you see with all my crazy background? And so they're little oval-shaped leaves. And so the huckleberries are also super high in iron. Of course, they have the vitamin C. They've been studied. They've been used for eyesight issues. Good for your eyes. Good for your capillaries. Good for varicose veins. And now they're getting studied for the oh gosh, vitamin C, zinc. That's what I'm looking for. And so they do have zinc, so that makes them a little bit more antiviral. So why not? You know, why not investigate some of these wild berries and make syrups out of them? Besides which, they're going to be absolutely fantastic tasting and super yummy to put in your anything you'd use the syrup for. I have made, and I keep showing you guys this, but for the new people, this is a blackberry with like just blackberries in apple cider vinegar and honey. And then I took the just took the blackberries out, so it's amazing on salads and that kind of thing. But it's a little watery. You can see it's a little watery, and so for the salad. So if you were to heat this and add a little bit more honey to thicken it and just simmer it over 45 minutes, then it will turn more syrupy consistency. So you can do that with any berries, and it's so good for you. So I encourage you to get out there and get your free berries, because we have a lot of free berries in BC here, and they're, it just gives beautiful energy having them picked with love. And so I'm just looking at the time here. I drive you guys crazy, I know. So so we're gonna do a thing, and actually I did this. I cheated and I tried this out. Usually, you guys obviously know I experiment with all the new things that I want to try, and I take you on the ride with me, because it's better for me to make the mistakes than you make the mistakes. And so I usually just like, hey, let's do this, and I do it, and sometimes it turns into a totally different animal, plan B or plan C. But I did try this ahead of time, so I kind of cheated a bit, and this was really, really good. Oh my God. So I always have to think hard. When I use this, because I always want to put the juicier things on the top of this, and the thicker things on the bottom, because I'm used to using my Vitamix where the blade is on the bottom, and you put the juicy things in the bottom, right? So if you're gonna juice or use your Vitamix or use your whatever you're gonna use, if you put something wet and juicy, like especially celery or something with a high water content, and you put it next to the blade, it'll help make it easier to clean. It also makes it easier to spin, right? Gives the blades a chance to do their thing without struggling. So I have to think that the berries have to go on top. That's what I'm trying to think. Oh my gosh. And so, yeah, because I'm so used to the Vitamix. So I'm going to just chop this into smaller pieces to make it easier, because the little bullet is just a little bullet and he's not very strong. So this, actually this does have a recipe too. And did you know if you boil your banana peels, they're really, really good for the garden? So I'm saving that to boil. Usually I would put it in the compost, but I'm going to boil it first and then feed the water to the garden and then compost the banana peel. But apparently it's like totally amazing for that. I learned that recently. You guys probably knew it for years, but I'm a little slow. Oh my God, am I ever. Okay, this is the recipe. Half cup of huckleberries and 1 banana. All right, let's do this. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so these things are way more powerful than you would think, these huckleberries. You know, they have similar qualities to if you look up huckleberries, which I did, often will come up a blue colored berry, like a blueberry, a wild blueberry. So that's like, we do have wild blueberries that grow here too, so I encourage you to find out what those are too, and pick them. But and I've said before, never, never, never pick anything or even touch any mushroom or wild plant or anything unless you know for sure what it is. So make sure that you know what you're picking. But if you find the wild blueberries, they're awesome and beautiful too. But these guys here have really been more investigated, yeah, just for the blood, you know, for the blood, the zinc, the immune system. And I think they're going to probably come up with a lot more research for these guys. So, you know how everybody's finding the latest superfruit and the latest super berry, and there's, of course, goji berries, and then there's acai berries, and, oh my gosh, all the different berries. The rest of them escape me right now, but there's all kinds of berry supplements out there, especially with the red ones, and they're expensive. So these will be next. You just wait and see. I was eating goji berries long before they became a superfruit. Okay, so simply a banana, half a cup of huckleberries. Okay. This, you guys will just, you will die for this. This is absolutely, you know what it tastes like? You want to know what it tastes like? I'm going to get a little dish here so I can show you. This tastes, I was so excited when I tried it out. yesterday, and it's all gone now. This tastes like cotton candy. Really, really and truly. Like, you know, as you know, I tend to eat healthy things. So if you wanted it to be like super sugary cotton candy, you could add a teaspoon of maple syrup to it. But the huckleberries pick up, I don't know, something magical about the banana. And honest to God, it tastes like cotton candy. And it looks like cotton candy too. Oh my gosh. Okay, so, yeah, so, I had one more thing to show you if you guys got a couple minutes. I did the prep, so I might as well, I don't want to put that down. That's going to be lunch. Okay, one more thing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. My hands are all sticky. I have to wash my hands first. Hang on. Good thing it's just my husband eating this stuff today. Okay, so I will show you this real fast. This is, these are hazelnuts. You can use, I should show you this on Monday. I should save it for Monday. I'm going to save it for Monday. Okay, surprise. I do that to you guys all the time. Okay, we'll save it for Monday. And thank you so much for joining me. This has just been such a blast. And I really appreciate you hanging out. Check out the rest of my YouTube videos and subscribe. And be sure to put in the comments anything you want me to experiment with or check out or learn with you. And oh gosh, okay, thanks Jane, I will check that out. Oh my gosh, thanks you guys. Yeah, we'll see you Monday. Okay, we'll have a surprise for you. And let me know if you want, if you have any requests, and for sure check out the YouTube videos. I'll miss you. See you Monday.